Okay, we're live. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone is having a great weekend on this Saturday. We're going to jump right into it. As you see, there's this big craze of sets doll workers, and everything. We're going to go really deep into this, and I don't know how long the video might be. It might be lengthy. If you have children, it might get kind of dark and sexual. So, parental advisory parental discretion is advised. So let's begin. Okay, there's so many ways to tackle this. As usual, I'll be bouncing around all over the place, but just stay with me. Now, we know pedophilia, pedophiles, is a often taboo topic to discuss in the Black community. And let me preface by saying, on social media, there's a lot of Black people posting these dolls and different things like that. But we don't need to think, well, this is only a white issue. This is only something white people would do. Because first, if you really want to think about it, this kind of started off decades ago when a lot of women started buying sex toys. And when they were buying the sex toys, and they was like, well, what, you don't need a man? Well, you don't need this. And people were kind of warning women like, well, this is, this can lead to other things. This can lead to other things. Women said, this is my body. You can't tell me what to do. And, the sex toys and different things like that continue to be purchased throughout the decades. Now we're here and we're looking at replacing not just sexual body parts as, private parts for men and women, private parts, but them as a human completely with these robots and passive dolls. The passive dolls are just the dolls that don't really move or say anything or do anything. And so this is definitely an issue that relates to the Black community, especially when we have pedophilia in our community. Last year around this time, we covered sex trafficking in Cleveland. There were several girls that went missing, and we, helped search for them, look for them, talk to the parents, and just got a more deeper understanding of what goes on what happens and the cause of sex trafficking in a way. So you can check that video out on our YouTube playlist. But pedophilia is something that we tend to shun away from. We don't want to talk about it. And we have to talk about it because these dolls, they're trying to market these sex dolls to pedophiles. So we have to, most people are just posting these for their pleasure. And we'll get into that later. But first, let's talk about the more important issue of pedophiles having access to these sex dolls. Now, there was a case, several cases that we did last year where young girls were murdered, under teenage age, they were murdered, they were sexually molested, different things like that. And, these were by pedophiles. These were by men that had a history of pedophilia. And when where the girl was found, she was found in an abandoned home, and they did a survey in that area, and it was a wide range of pedophiles living in that area. So they're concentrated in our communities, in the Black community. So we really need to look into this situation because there's no real concrete research or evidence as far as from what I've tried to look for that these dolls will curb pedophilia urge to molest children or the urge of a pedophilia to, do inappropriate things with girls or boys. And I posted a picture before I went live about an hour ago saying I was going to go live that they're marketing. There's an ad where it says 750,000 pedo criminals are searching online for these sex dolls, child sex dolls. So let me preface that I'm talking about child sex dolls, not the sex dolls that people are posting on their pages about or this and that, and I don't need a man or I don't need a woman. I'm talking about child sex dolls, children. And these children, they're 8 years old. You can look at my page right now on the Melanated Media page. It was the last thing. And make sure you're sharing this video. Make sure you click on all notifications so you can see, you know, when I go live and get notified. But they're posting, they have these child sex dolls, and they have, you know, their mouths are open. And it's like, there's no real way to, there's no evidence that it'll curb their urge to, you know, commit a pedophilia act to molest children. And these dolls are coming from China, they're coming from Asia, and they're marked as models or mannequins. They're not really, they don't really disclose what their intended use is for. So this is a real big issue, because if pedophiles coming out of prison are going to be given these dolls, and there's no research if it makes them want to molest children more, or if it makes them want to, you know, just go home and do whatever they do with their dolls, and it makes pedophilia go down. Important, because these issues, this is going to affect the Black community more than the suburbs and the white communities, because pedophiles tend to be concentrated in urban areas. They tend to be concentrated in predominantly Black areas, near schools. They can't be near schools, but it's like right on the borderline usually. And there's a few websites you can just Google yourself to see, you know, if there's any in your area, different things like that. But we really need to focus on, take the attention seeking stuff out of it, and think, well, we need to have more research before we give these to pedophilians. And so that's what that covers that as far as with the children. Now, as far as the adults, in Germany, they've actually already started a sex doll brothel. And you can go to the brothel, or you can rent a sex doll for $98 an hour, 98 US dollars in Germany. And you rent the doll, you bring it back. Of course, you washed it and different things like that. They have 11 different dolls, and it's just, look at my research here. A lot of these men are being dropped off. So according to the article, I'll post the source when I publish it on this page, but a lot of the husbands are being dropped off by their wives, according to this article, and their wives are waiting in the car while they go have sex with these dolls in a brothel, or they bring them home. And it says the dolls are very popular. They're booked around 12 times each day to men of all ages from all over the country. 70% of the customers return for a second visit. They have quote unquote tolerant wives. And so their wives are waiting in the car while they're getting these sex dolls in Germany. So do we really want to have this situation here? As far as we know that our community is divided, we know that there's a war and divide and conquer tactic between, you know, to get the Black women and the Black man to divide. We already know that. And it's like, we normally say, okay, divide and conquer, and we're going to just divide. We say it without really emphasizing what it means. So a divide and conquer tactic is only effective if it's a sensitive issue. So what is more sensitive than sex, than love and romance, right? Besides money, that is really the most intimate thing. And we know with, I did the video, make sure you check it out, on the Section 8 housing, and how they keep the men out of the home, and how they're getting billions of dollars to make these mixed income communities, and it doesn't really sustain the family. It doesn't really market a family structure to generate Black wealth, because they're saying they want to alleviate poverty with mixed income, but they don't really include the male or the father into the picture. So again, with these set styles, you have it creates a passive, it nourishes really a passive tendency to intimacy that we have with our fellow human beings. And it's, we already aren't really communicating with our neighbors, and we don't really speak as much. And there's a lot of research saying that social media has actually made us less communicative with our everyday people that we see, because we know we can talk to people on the internet. So we see that we're going more into this tribe mentality, and everything is becoming what, there's like a drug, the drug for our needs, like every single need and desire that they manufacture, they have a drug for it. You don't like talking to people? Here's social media. You don't like having sex, or you can't have a good relationship? Here's a sex doll. And it's not really addressing well, the underlying issues of problems with intimacy that maybe stem from a broken childhood. The broken childhood might stem from poverty. It might stem from, you had a parent that was touching you or molesting you, and that might stem from maybe they were molested. So it's a cycle that is never really going to get addressed. And in China, because that's where a lot of these dolls are coming from, they had the one-child rule in China, and they have basically too many males in China. So there's not enough women in China to, mate and have children with men. So the sex dolls is becoming real big over there. And right now they're saying by 2030, there's going to be a 30 million surplus of men in China. And they're talking about they had an online shopping event where 65% of sex toys were sold to males between the age of 18 to 29. They sold 500 units, and they sold one per minute. So they sold 500, sex toys for men at a rate of one per minute until, they sold out. But you have those who support the sex dolls, and they're saying that it can bring out a number of positive benefits, such as aiding the loneliness of single people who cannot make a relationship work. But that there's no really long-term research or evidence to really say that. And the people who say this, they use a small sample size. There were like several studies that they used, and one study was like 100 people, and one study was like 1,100 people. So it's not really, and then there may have been some bias in that study criteria. So there's not really a big sample size that they're using for them to even make that assumption. These dolls are, quote unquote, the ladies are real dream women, according to the website where you can get them, claiming that the dolls are always willing and uncomplicated. So now this is where it's going to get kind of deep. So you have the media trying to make women accountable, and then you have the other side of the media trying to make men not really deal with it, because there's really nothing a man can do as far as, because they want, like today with the Women's March and everything, like everything with the media and society, they're trying to make women less accountable as possible. Now, but that's how they divide and conquer, because if someone is sensitive listening to this, they're going to react sensitive to that statement I just made. However, there is truth to it, but it's not, you see what I'm saying? The divide is a sensitive topic. And if you notice, when no one can really speak out or say anything against women, but it's perfectly okay to speak out and say anything against men, even an allegation against a man, and he can lose everything that he worked for 15, 20 years, even if it's not proven to be true or not. But with women, you can blame emotion, you can blame this or that, and it's okay, it's acceptable. Like a silly example would be in all these movies you see, and when a woman gets emotional, she slaps a man or punches him, and he doesn't do anything. And it's like, well, if a man did that, it wouldn't be okay. But if a woman does it, then her emotions makes it doesn't. She's not accountable for it. So I don't want to get too deep into that, but you have to really see where this is going as far as, okay, we make the men not really want to deal with the women, and we make the women not be accountable for their actions because women are emotional, and that's okay. Men are emotional too, but we use it differently. We channel it differently in a way. Some might channel it the same, but generally based off science, we use it differently. So if the women are unaccountable, aren't held accountable, that means they're going to get away with doing a lot of things that men can't do. So as a result, men are not going to want to deal with women as much. So this will become, unfortunately, maybe popular as it already seems to be through social media. So I'm just going to read a couple more comments, then notes, then we'll talk about the age of Aquarius briefly. So there's a fear that these dolls could normalize deviant behavior and lead pedophiles to cross the line with real victims. And going back to the child sex dolls, according to the UK-based nonprofit campaign against sex robots, there's no evidence that adult sex dolls or sex bots have curbed demands for prostitutes. Some of these sex dolls resemble children as young as 3 years old and can be customized to feature facial expressions, including sadness or fear. While some assert that the increasingly lifelike sex dolls will serve as a deterrent to criminal sex acts against children by pedophiles, many experts believe that the industry will encourage sexual predation, leading to an increase, not a decrease, in the sexual exploitation of children. So, again, do we really want pedophiles coming into the Black community getting these sex dolls? Because if it's already a taboo topic in our community, and I really think we need to look into this situation with these child sex dolls. They're not the adult, well, the adult ones too, but the child sex dolls, that's really kind of creepy, if you want to ask me. But this ties, now let's get a little metaphysical. This ties into the age of Aquarius. That should be anyone, easy to understand that if you know a little bit about astrology, because this is, Aquarius generally has issues with intimacy. It's ruled by Saturn. It's the season is during the winter. It's typically a cold and detached sign. So there's people saying, well, we're not in the age of Aquarius, we are, or we're on the cusp of it. With this doll craze and people replacing humans for dolls, and you have the wives dropping their husbands off to sex brothels in Germany, I would say we're on the tiptoe of being in the age of Aquarius, because this is going to be normalized. It's just bound to happen, because the nature of Aquarius is detached. It doesn't feel comfortable with intimacy. And the more we get into technology, the less and less comfortable we'll feel with intimacy, because it's like it gives us a shortcut to intimacy, where real intimacy, it has to be built up. It has to have some kind of foundation. And you can't have a foundation with something that's really not human. So we talked about the automatic kiosk in McDonald's and how that's going to be taking over people's jobs soon, and the cashiers, and different things like that. And I'm going to do more videos on this, but I wanted to basically, like, we only have a short amount of time to really fight racism. And most people don't really understand that. Like, there's probably only a few years to fight and combat racism, especially with Pluto going to being in Aquarius. I think on 2020, Pluto will be in Aquarius. So we'll see definitely by then that a lot of automation and machinery will just begin to take over. And I did a video with an astrologer on that, but I couldn't put it out because of technological reasons. But I might have to contact him again, and we might have to speak on that. But it's we think of, oh, the machines are going to take our jobs and they're going to do this and that, which is probably true. But you know, what better way first to get in there in the bedroom, in the intimacy, where you're already become more accepted and passive of it. Because, you know, is a very, very strategical tactic and the art of warish, because it's like the art of fighting without fighting, like making your opponent passive, making them vulnerable with, you know what I mean, in a way, like where you're accepting these dials, you're accepting intimacy in a way that's unnatural. And in turn, you're going to accept the automated kiosks, you're going to accept the robots that will begin to take over these industries that we have. So if we're just spending time on racism and everything, which we should, that's understandable, but we have to see there's going to be a side attack coming. You know what I mean? They're hiding in the trees or in the bushes or in the mountain, and we're just on the field fighting. And the robots are like up there in the mountain, and we're worried about, well, racism is important, but if, let's say the robots and everything come, if we're worried about fighting racism, are we going to have time to decide and choose if we want to fight the robots, or we're going to fight the robots and racist white people, or those who are racist against us? And like, do we really want to add another enemy that doesn't really care, that can't be reasoned with, that can't, you know, understand black oppressed people's problems and white supremacy, or, you know, 400 years of slavery? Like, do we really want another issue? Because there's people having enough hard time talking to white people about it, and even black people about it. So, it's 23 minutes. So that's it. I'm gonna wrap this up. So maybe I'll be back again before Monday. Monday we're going to be speaking with someone from Hoover, the Latino community. They're going to be speaking on gentrification in Hoover in California. I'm going to put that out Monday around 11:30, 12 o'clock p.m. because they're on Pacific time. And then I'm going to be speaking with the director of Priced Out, which is a documentary from Portland, Oregon on gentrification. And he follows several black women and how they dealt with gentrification in Portland, Oregon from 2000 to 2015. So that'll be a real great, interesting conversation. And that will be Tuesday night also at night. So you can check that out Wednesday morning or Tuesday around midnight. All right.